Well, I would love to start broad, hear a little bit about your career journey, how you got to BCG, and what kind of work you're doing right now.
Yeah, it's a long story. Out of college, I actually started in financial markets back in India. It's been a long, long time ago. So this was when India was going through a period of volatility around wars. And soon after, we were going through the dot-com era. And I realized I need something more exciting, more different, more challenging, and I jumped to consulting. And started consulting. Some years later, I moved to a boutique, which was in the outsourcing and services space. Spent several years there. That's when BCG was looking to build business around this, and I was keen to move. And I joined BCG. It's been over 14 years now, 10 of which had been based out of India. And post-COVID, for a bunch of reasons, some logical, some illogical, we decided we need to move, came here. What I do is basically, over the last 20 years, have been around the services industry, across every part of it, on the buy side, service provider side, investors, industry associations, and forums. So I work at the 360 degrees of the services ecosystem through this, seen this industry go through many cycles, and have formed a view that there is resilience here that has a durability, and you need to live through the hype, work through the hypes, and make sure you keep your feet on the ground.
So I read your BCG article on Agentic AI opportunity in services. Will you tell us more? Is Agentic AI the death of services, or is this the lifeline that services have needed after a few years of stagnation?
Actually, the answer is a little more nuanced. It is difficult if you don't change. Very cliched, but very real. And we've seen eras where, as technology came through, some companies were very slow to adapt and they actually perished. Big names, industry leaders who perished. And the opportunity is that if you're agile and adaptive enough, you will create space for you to grow. And what the underlying thesis is, every technology transition needs a lot of work for companies to actually adopt technology and be ready to harness the value. AI is one such. Everybody wants to adopt AI, everybody wants to get the value of AI, but the amount of work every enterprise needs to go through to actually get the benefit of AI is significant. And they're not by any means capable and able to do it all on their own. Who gets to do this? Everyone else in the services ecosystem. But you need to be ready for it, you need to be preparing for it, you need to be investing behind it to be able to capture that. So yes, it's an opportunity, and it's a huge tailwind for the smart ones, for the agile ones. But if you continue to believe that, oh, this will not happen to me, you may be looking at the wrong side of the curve.
And 3 years ago, I asked you about the implications of generative AI technologies like ChatGPT, and you pointed to low-level coding capabilities and customer experience, which has certainly panned out. So I'm back with the same question. What's next? What are the next opportunities for AI disruption?
I think the level of productivity gains that we will see going forward will continue to rise sharply in coding, in how businesses operate and processes. I think the opportunity for everyone else is to help companies go through that journey. One of the things that you'll start to notice is individual level productivities are beginning to rise. So just as what I do, I can generate a PowerPoint slide in a matter of 15, 20 minutes if I have the storyline thought through. I can generate a note for someone very quickly if I have the outline with me. The research gets done very quickly. All of this where I would use help, but that is not yet translating to say I need less people because you're all doing more. The expectations of what we do starts to keep going up as well. So I think every part of what we do in the value chain will kind of become more and more productive. But I think it's going to take a little more time than the doomsdayers say. And my general view is when this happens, when there's a productivity squeeze on what you do today, there are a whole lot of other things that start to come to play that need to be done. I was talking to a a group of leaders for a client of ours. And very interesting point came up, and there was this woman in the audience, and we were having the Q&A as a part of the back end of my talk. And she said, while we are creating agents, we are also seeing a world where there are too many agents, and we are beginning to see complexity and confusion around that. The other example she gave was very interesting. We said, with AI, people adapt their, and this is an HR use case, people adapt their resumes to suit a JD that's out there. On the other hand, the JD is being assessed by an AI as well as a first pass. So you're creating a world where AI is interacting with AI, and then you'll create the second layer problem of we need to then take a next pass. And
Which
how
was
you go
also
solve.
AI.
Well, that could be the human.
Yeah.
How do you solve for this? So you've suddenly created a new problem or a new opportunity or a new use case of how do you sift through a AI generated resume which is evaluated by AI versus the real individual capabilities and profile. It's a facetious point, but it's very real.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen in different technology eras as well. I mean, if you go back to the world of cloud and software as a service, the one thing that happened was business became more active in consumption and buying decisions. And what it resulted in was a enterprise that was saddled with software and SaaS, which has been brought in by different stakeholders. And the CIO is looking at, holy, how do I manage that? How do I manage cybersecurity around it? How do I manage data and all of that stuff? Suddenly a new stream of opportunity and work comes up, which is around security. Technology drives productivity, but it also spawns other things that need to get addressed along with it. So part of what is going to be interesting is to see what else starts to come up, what will continue to get solved by technology, and what will need to get solved beyond what is being solved by technology. So it's going to be an exciting time.
Yeah. And how ready are services companies to provide what their clients are looking for in terms of agentic AI?
I think the technology exists. I think the thinking and capability exists on both sides. The challenge that one is seeing is the interaction has a lot of friction. And the friction is not intentional, it's just how enterprise operates and how agreements happen. I'll just give you an example. If you were to harness the power of agentic as a service provider, let's say any SI or an IT company, you've invested in tools, you've invested in platforms, you invested in capabilities, you've invested in partnerships, you have the full toolkit available. Now you go and have the conversation with the client. The first line that you typically hear from a client, especially if in more regulated industries, you cannot bring your tools into my environment. You have to work on my environment, on my tools, and my platforms. So the entire investment that's being made by the service provider in this, the ability to harness the full power gets challenged. And this is just one example. We are seeing examples where, going back to your generative AI point earlier, the license had to be given by the client for his service provider to be able to use for being more productive. And to give the license, you need a business case. And there are no established metrics to how do you evaluate the effectiveness of and the ROI of such investments. So that process gets slowed down. So the issue is capabilities exist on both sides and everybody's investing in it. But the nature of how the interaction work still needs a lot of smoothing, which will happen over a period of time, and by which time we'll see more productivity come through. So I wouldn't say one is, there are differences between companies, I'm sure. But everybody's investing in it because this is really a matter of survival. If you're not playing the game and investing in it, at some point when some of these things get sorted out, you'll be left behind.
Yeah. And there is so much fear about agentic AI shrinking the services market, even as it's creating new opportunities for these organizations. What do you think is going to separate the winners and the losers in the next 5 years?
So two parts, right? As I said, one, we need to be clear that everything you do today will continue to become more and more productive in the future. It's been true forever.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone else and I was giving example, and you may not remember this, you may not be aware of this, but many years ago, we measured the productivity of a coder by a metric called KLOC, which is basically kilo lines of code, which means how many lines of code can you write on a given day or a given month or a given week. Today, you give one prompt and you can generate 100,000 lines of code. That's not even a metric. Before this came, people were already using reusable libraries, right? So the coding was never started from zero. So productivity of coding has gone up leaps and bounds over the years, and it will continue to improve. And now more things are coming that will make agentic will actually accelerate even faster, because there are parts of things that humans don't need to do any further. It can write code, it can test code, it can test against the use case, write the functional spec, actually do the full cycle. But other things will crop up. So the opportunity will continue to expand. The question is, are you thinking about where the next version of work will come and investing behind and growing that? I'll give you a more traditional example. There's this space called legacy modernization in IT services, which is basically take a legacy core platform and transform this to become a more modern stack. Typically applicable in banks, insurance companies who have large platform-based implementation, which have been around for 30, 40, 50 years, COBOL, mainframe. And people have just been layering on that without changing the core. Changing the core is risky. It requires a lot of time and a lot of dollars. Today, this technology can read that code, because everybody who knew that code is actually not around anymore. Not around in the professional sphere, and actually not around in the world. It's that old in terms of technology, but that statement that we can now read that code meant that space is not protected anymore. Now, that was an extreme reaction of the market, but the reality is now you can read that code, you can actually modernize that code at a faster time with a lower cost. That market has suddenly opened up as a new TAM, which did not exist. So the thing is, as you think about what's going on, there are new opportunities that are emerging for companies to work on. Some of it are new in the space of what I call foundational capabilities. Take data. No company can claim that we've got the data organized to capture value from AI. A lot of work needs to get done. Take cloud, take security, all of those need work. And then there are traditional spaces which has become more viable, like I just explained, like legacy one. There's a lot of work. The question is, are you constantly thinking of where this will come? And what do I need to position for? What investments, capabilities I need to build to actually capture? And companies who are constantly thinking about this will actually be the winners. Now there are, to be honest, it also sounds very cliched when I say this, because that's been always true. And the reality is services industry lives on agility and execution, because we don't have to put in $1 billion to set up a manufacturing plant before the first output comes in. All you have to do is get a group of people focused on something. With very little investment, you can build new capabilities, and partnerships are there to make. So you can move and pivot quickly as technology shifts versus manufacturing, where you take 3 years to build a plant, and if the technology suddenly gets outdated,
it's too
you're
late.
sitting with, exactly. Services moves quickly and can move quickly. So the question is, are you moving quickly enough to focus on the right opportunities and going after them?
Yeah. And how is services talent strategy shifting? What does building a future-ready workforce really look like right now?
I think the one thing that is continuing to become more important is everybody needs to be immersing themselves in the use of AI. And it's true in IT services, it's true in BPO, it's actually true in consulting. We as a firm, for example, are investing significant time for everyone, right from the associate on the team to people like me, on our ability to use AI. And how do we create ways of working, methods, our tricks and hacks to become more effective and productive, because we believe it is going to be important. So testing the art of the possible with the AI on a constant basis, upskilling yourself around AI will be very, very critical in the future, because it's like 15, 20 years ago, if you were to do coding, you need to do a language. If you were to go on Office, you need to do Microsoft Office, the whole suite of that. If you want to become consultant, you need to learn PowerPoint, right? And now PowerPoint is not required anymore because Claude can generate a slideware with little effect. So constant upskilling and upskilling in that direction will be very critical. And I think the other one that we're beginning to realize is going to become more and more important is this whole notion of from doing to reviewing and a better understanding of the business. Now, we have said this before in the digital era as well, but I think that will continue to become more and more critical. So creation will be done by technology. The question is, do you have the ability to review this and say this is correct and this is applicable to the business context and apply in the business context? So some of those other skills will become more and more important. I think those are just two manifestations or examples of what will become important. So clearly, upskilling on technology and upskilling on business and industry and domain will become more and more important as we go forward in this space.
And what about go-to-market hiring? Is the archetype changing? Like, is the person who was successfully selling 3 years ago still the right hire?
The answer is yes and no. There are some core traits that are still important. And I would mean if you're someone in the market, you're able to understand and empathize with the client's problem, you're able to build relationship and connect. Those soft skills and industry skills are still relevant. But I think what's also important is the ways of selling are changing. Selling is not about discussing, but it's about showing today, which is proof points, use cases, being able to engage in a more technical conversation. That also means that the sales also has to upskill to be able to understand, appreciate who to bring and how to actually engineer conversation on the power of AI and the value from AI. So, if I would take a very abstracted view, this is one more technology that the sales need to skill itself up on. But I think the pace at which this is happening, that urgency is going to come faster than before.
Yeah. There are so many industry experts predicting doom and gloom right now for services, but you have stayed relentlessly optimistic. Have you had any moments of doubt on that?
Actually, no. I talk to industry analysts as well, the equity guys. I don't have a doom and gloom story, but I do have a story that we are, when I say we, this industry is a very large industry. You should not think of this as an industry of the 2000s where it was growing leaps and bounds with very high margins and sustained margins over a period of time. This industry will grow, but it'll grow at what a mature industry would look like, and needs to have reasonable expectations of growth. We will see new types of players emerging. There will be constant shifting of lines on winners and losers, and coming of new age players and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting industry. I personally believe that the ways of working, even the global delivery capabilities and models are so well set that unwinding that is not easy. And what we will see, however, is a set of things that happen in the early era of transition of technology. So you will start to see more examples of, I don't need entry-level talent. I only need experienced talent. That's because the technology is new. The leverage you get from an entry-level talent may be harder than a more tenured talent. But once it settles down and becomes mainstream, and I don't know when it'll happen, we will go back to the ways of working which resemble somewhat similar to today. And the beauty of this industry is that they can take a technology and industrialize it at scale, which is why they exist, and which allows them to operate in the manner they operate, which is where, and they partner with the companies that they partner with. So I'm optimistic. I wouldn't say I'm seeing new horizons or new differences or new things coming up, but I'm not clearly in the doom and gloom space. This industry will continue to grow. There is more to be done. The other metric that we put on a report was, if you look at, and this is at a very macro level, if you look at the global GDP, and if you look at the share of tech, and it has been a rising curve forever. Every industry, every sector needs more and more technology. With AI, it'll become more and more. And then share of service as a part of tech is actually a steady line. So while you like to believe that there is a software that will eat the services, but then to manage the software, there'll be something else that needs to get done. Or more software will be written, which need to get managed. A simple anecdote is, I think Apple recently published it after many years. Last year, they had the most significant jump in new app creation on the store because writing apps has become easier. You and I can write apps for whatever fancy thing we want to do. So it's become easier. So the classic Jevons paradox, I don't know, is playing out. So there'll be more. We saw it in the cloud. I believe this sector will be resilient. We'll have our ups and downs. Part of the challenge, we are dealing with a very difficult macroeconomic environment, which creates all kind of questions and uncertainties. But I continue to be optimistic that this is a very steady and resilient sector.
These are my final rapid fire questions. Is SaaS dead?
I don't know. Large SaaS or large enterprise software will be resilient. They won't get replaced easily.
Yeah.
But the smaller ones, they will have their own share of volatility. Mm-hmm. But I don't think there's a word called anything is dead. I don't believe that.
Mm-hmm. Will Agentic AI ultimately create or eliminate jobs?
It'll do both. It'll eliminate a set of jobs, but it'll also create more jobs. Mm-hmm. And I think the net answer will be positive. Mm-hmm. I don't see a world where there'll be less employment than today.
And what do you think the hardest role to hire for right now is in tech services?
The most cliche term you hear, or most common term you hear is the FDEs. That's a skill which is ill-defined. Everybody defines it differently. But the way, if you think of the true manifestation of someone who's at the front end, working with the business, understand technology, can drive this end to end, that's a non-trivial capability. And that will be in short supply for a meaningful period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were graduating college this month and you didn't have a job, what would you do?
That's a scary thing. It also depends on where my wealth is coming from. If I'm not supported, I'll be curious. I think I'll be focusing on one, staying close to tech, and also building soft skills around it. I think those will be pretty resilient going forward.
Amazing. Yeah. The conversation around tech services has been all AI. Are there any trends that you've noticed that you don't think are getting enough attention? Any different trends?
The fundamental discussion that I don't see happen enough is the impact of AI versus impact of everything that's playing out today. And how do you separate the impacts of those two? Yeah. I don't think that conversation is there. So people are talking AI because you need to be talking about this. And a lot of time the technology conversation is leading the actual reality by quite a distance. And I'm hopeful that people are seeing that and making investment and choices appropriately.